I wanted to kind of take this moment to go back and circle around from our conversation this past weekend, which was absolutely great conversation. Can't believe it went as long as it did. It went about 8 hours or so, which is really unprecedented for JR in the show. But I wanted to kind of take a moment to discuss a few things that were taken away from that conversation about about the divide, right? I wanted to kind of get some of your takes of what you guys got from the conversation this past week, Sunday, and I kind of wanted to build upon that, and hopefully we can find a sort of a much more clear path forward because I understand like we discussed a lot of things that just went on idling, and there weren't many solutions uh, or any sort of clear direction in terms of where we are and where we're going. But hopefully, this conversation can help bridge that gap and that divide. So I just want to take a moment. Like, what did you guys take away? What were the things that you guys walked away and kind of got out of that conversation as far as the Latin community as opposed its relationship with Black American community?
I'm sorry, ask that one more time for me.
I said, could you share what what you took away from the conversation that we had on Sunday, as far as the relationship between both the Latin community and the African American community here in the States?
I don't think I took away anything different. I think the Latin American community and the African American community is fine, and I think it's always been fine. I don't know. I think like all of this stuff that the people talking about right now are not actually people who grew up with Latino people. Like I know me specifically, like Puerto Ricans and stuff like that. Being from where I'm from, we just live together. Like they almost black to me. They are like kind of like especially like in New York, like they talk the same and everything. So I don't know what I haven't changed my mind because of what's going on TV, which is weird to change your mind because you're watching something on TV and it's different from your real life. I don't know. So.
So it's fair to say that there's a lot of uh, sharing a lot of culture and a lot of shared experiences, living in close proximity to each other.
Yeah, in real life, like so the people really. I don't know what it's like where you from and like the hood where you from. Where I'm from, like Puerto Rican niggas say nigga, right? But then you get on the internet and a lot of people be like, "Oh, y'all can't say this," and I'm like, "Damn, I grew up with like Puerto Ricans and Latinos talking just because they was from the same neighborhood, so we all talk the same." I don't know, but I think it's them same people who always want to police how much black somebody got in their genetics. Who the weird people on the internet who kind of are having these conversations.
I'm from Dallas, so there's plenty of Mexicans in Dallas, and we don't have an issue as far as how we get along or how we relate at all. I think that this now being a new topic, I don't think that the what's going on like now with like the immigration ICE stuff. I don't think that we need to conflate that with saying that there's a issue or divide between black and Latin American black or Latin America. It's just issue between the country's immigration policies and standards and Latin America. I don't think that it's a black issue. The one of their leaders said that the Negroes fight is not ours. We need to mind our business. And he said that a long time ago. And it's now I understand why so many people on are trying to feel the same way because it's when it's black issues. We have an ally for us are few and far in between, and I think that a lot of black people are choosing to keep that same energy right now. Like, hey, immigration is great, it's cool, but you got to do it the right way. And then if you're not, you know what I'm saying, uh, you're not afforded the same opportunities, protections of our Constitution when you're not a citizen. So that's pretty much how I'm looking at it. And then too, how I've seen it being here in DC now, and then keeping tapped into what's going on in Dallas.
Yeah, so I've always felt that it was a two separate issues. You have the ones who live here, pay taxes, are citizens, and contributed to the society, and then you have those who are not legal citizens who um, have immigrated here through false pretenses and have a huge problem with the immigration policy in place with this administration. So I think there's two separate groups of individuals. What I've gotten speaking to a lot of people in my close proximity is that they don't mind having the people who came here illegally deported because they feel that they went through the right process and that um, it feels like almost unfair for them to have to cut the line, and sort of you have a divide within the larger community itself. So I think what happened this past weekend is that a lot of the conversation was conflated that that's everybody. And in reality, there's different subgroups within the larger group or larger community. There are those who are here legally, who operate and live and function in communities with other, American individuals, such as the Black community, etc. And then there are people here who are illegally, who have their own community, but go against the grain and the policy of the betterment of what's going on in this country. And sort of, I believe that's really the divide. It's those who are here illegally versus the ones who are here legally who have a different position than them.
But yeah, I agree. I mean, it's almost like the divide between black people. Like when people talk about black fatigue, like you're not talking, you can't, it's not black fatigue it's not black people you're tired of, it's niggas. And there's a divide between black people and niggas. And unfortunately, only people that can say it out loud are black people. So when other groups are talking about black fatigue, they have to say black people because a white guy can't be like, hey, I love black people, but I hate niggas. Or a Mexican guy can't be like, hey, black people are great, man, but these niggas are, I'm saying, the problem. So I think, like you said, it's a divide between two groups of this, like two subsets of the same people.
I agree.
So it's the mindset. There's a certain mindset that comes with a certain type of behavior or their lack of, right? And I believe that we also have the same thing too, because contrary to popular belief, it's always the individuals who are doing the worst that tends to get the most airtime and the most attention versus the ones who are actually changing the paradigm and changing the culture and actually, excelling, right? Um, those individuals don't get enough credit. They don't get enough airtime because it always feels like there's a sort of a narrative to kind of push the ones who are more degenerate, for lack of a better word, and those who are actually excelling to the bottom, right? Like we can't show examples of, individuals kind of excelling because it just kind of awakens that kind of spirit within themselves. And sort of, I think that's really something that placates it. Also, too, it's the celebration of certain culture. I think that the music and the culture, even on our side too. I was just having a conversation the other day that the music on our side has shifted and has taken a rather distasteful kind of position these last, 8 to 10 years or so. What do you guys see?
I think in the past decade, I think it's just the evolution of people and a new generation is looking at these same problems that are linger from a previous generation and then having their own viewpoint on it. I mean, I don't think a lot of these things none of these problems are new. Like it's not like they've had been a there's a new issue or excuse me, there's a new group of people. It's just different people seeing the same problems different ways because the way my folks saw it, it's probably not the way that I see it. And the way that I see it is not going to be the way that my kids see it. So That's what I'm seeing when I look at this political.
So it's the same issue, just repackaged and rebranded in a different.
Yeah, immigration hadn't been immigration has been an issue for decades. It's there's a lot of things we can do to make it more efficient. So I understand how one side feels that way, but then we do have rules in place for a reason, and I don't think we need to make it easier to get into the greatest country in the world. So I mean, why would we want to water ourselves down? I love the fact that other cultures and people move here. I think it's what makes America great, but I don't think that anybody should be able to, not play by the rules that we've already defined, not do what they know we're supposed to do, and then, in the spirit of fairness, I think that needs to be taken into account too. That sometimes the wait times for some of these visa applications are significantly longer than they are for other people from other countries, and we need to maybe look at that and make sure that those things are aligned as far again towards the spirit of fairness, and then also add a layer of efficiency to it.
What are your thoughts, Real Dope?
What was the original question you asked?
So essentially, what I wanted to kind of ask was, what do you see? Is it the same issue, just repackaged and rebranded to a different generation, or is this has always been an ongoing issue?
The immigration issue?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, it's the same issue we've always dealt with, and I guess I guess the generation that we have now is kind of very compassionate about it for whatever reason. Which you should, it's nothing wrong with being compassionate about it, but like, just kind of like the disregard of like, yo, we have rules. I don't know. I guess you got some people who think that rules shouldn't matter if somebody's telling you that they need help, which I don't necessarily I agree. I agree that people should just follow the rules and come in the right way. But yeah, it's the same. It's the same issue. It's nothing new, you know. But I don't know if they were kind of responding the way that we're responding. I don't know if it's always been people trying to allow them here. I didn't know that.
So we have more compassion today, more consideration, and less regards for the rules. Do you think that comes on the heel of people, the rules bending and breaking in certain instances, and sort of now there's been examples of that happening, and sort of that's why there's a disregard for the rules and much a higher consideration for compassion?
Say that one more time.
I said, do you think that we have more compassion and consideration today in less regards for the rules? Do you think that comes an example of the rules being broken in past and people seeing that and understanding that the rules don't matter because the level of consideration and compassion is much higher?
No, I don't think so. Yeah, no, I don't think so. I think it's just kind of like the same. When you younger, you just kind of lean that way to like not really caring about responsibility and things like that and having to do things the right way. You just kind of, I don't know, they just don't respect rules. They don't respect law.
But do our lawmakers and our leaders follow the rules and do the same exact thing? Right. I think we're having a national crisis in the sense of we're being asked to follow rules and regulations, and the people who set forth those rules don't follow them, or they break them, or they bend them in whichever way. So there's a blatant disregard for them because they might see other people do the same exact thing.
Like sneak into the country and stuff. Which we or
Well,
you talking about like just the trading and the stocks things.
everything. It can be anything and everything, from corruption to handing down sentence to nepotism to a series of just favoritism in that sense, right? that has a blatant disregard for laws and policies.
I mean, if you any intelligent person knows that that's always going to be the case. Kind of like people trying to exploit rules and exploit their positions and stuff like that. But that doesn't mean that the entire country, we just kind of lose. We lose control of the entire country. I think that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I think
Go ahead,
we started bending rules. I mean, all rules are being bent. Like the rules that said, a boy can't play girl sports is being bent, and then if you don't agree with it being bent, you're being told that you're a bigot and it's unfair. So I think that we're just in an era now where people are just throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks, and a lot of this shit is not sticking, but it's still just leaving like that trail of shit on the wall. As far as our lawmakers making rules, I think they abide by the rules. It's just some of those rules they abide by aren't fair because everyone's not able to do it, or everyone's not aware that it's a rule. So I don't have an issue with any of that as it comes to this like immigration issue or like corruption and nepotism. None of that stuff I don't let any of that stuff bother me because at the end of the day, it bothering me won't change anything. So I know that nepotism is real. So instead of being bothered or concerned with it, I chose to make sure I put myself in a position where I can benefit from it. And with me not being able to benefit from it, and just my kids being able to benefit from my efforts, I'm fine with that. I don't have a victim mindset, or I don't wrap myself in my shroud of victimhood because it's what other people are doing.
But don't you think that's where a lot of this kind of stems from? A lot of people who are not well informed or misinformed are kind of joining conversations where they're not really sharing a lot of the nuances of what's really happening, and sort of there's a lot of, what would I say, emotional outcry or outburst or fake outrage.
I think it's too many people that aren't well educated or informed on issues speaking about those issues. That's one of the things that's one of the problems I have within this space. A lot of people, talk about things and then they try to present or try to push their personal biases or opinions as facts just because they feel a way. So, and when I listen to a lot of you guys talk, and one of the things that I respect are when the guys who have conversations saying things like, "Here's what I see," or things like, "This is what I believe," instead of "I feel like," "I think." And if we could limit that, or if not limit that, just limit the amount of attention and credence we give to people who have the conversation from those standpoints, I think we'd be a much better place.
I agree with that. That's actually a really good point. That's actually a really good point.
I mean, if you
I,
look at a lot of these people aren't qualified to have the opinions they have. And when I say qualified, like your opinion needs to be earned. It needs to be based on and reflective of your actual reality and your lifestyle. For example, none of us would take anyone serious that says that we'll take someone serious that's overweight, say 600 pounds, 5'5", and then they're trying to give you workout advice, right? Even though you should work out, even though you should lead a healthy lifestyle, like you're 600 pounds, you can't tell me that, or you shouldn't. You can't expect me to listen to you because you're not doing it yourself. And a lot of these people have these conversations as if they're subject matter experts on the issue, and in actuality, the only thing they're subject matter experts on are their feelings. And again, feelings are not necessarily fact based or unbiased. 10 times out of 9.
so we really have converted into a nation of feelings and not necessarily a nation of facts.
Yeah, because if we were a nation of facts over feelings, the immigration issue wouldn't even be a thing. Because it's a fact that there is an immigration policy that is law. It is a fact that if you're in this country illegally, you should not be here. It is a fact that regardless of why you came in this country illegally, it doesn't absolve you from having to go through the process of citizenship that everyone else does that's not born here. It's a fact that when you have these types of conversations with these people, that none of their stances or views are based on logic or law, but they will be based on, feelings, thoughts, biases, and experiences. And unfortunately, that's just not how the world works.
I think people, I think with these conversations, they never really get hashed out properly because a lot of times we just people have debates and the objective of a debate honestly should be to you know for
When
the better I think it should be for the better for the truth to win, but the objective of a debate is to just win. So I think that's one of the problems is like you never actually get the truth. It's just like you can use tactics and you can use skill and know-how just to win the debate, which doesn't actually mean that you're right. So I think that's one of the other issues.
we have too many debates and not enough discussions, because the discussion is just to explore a topic and find common ground, or to understand and digest other people's viewpoints. A debate has a winner and a loser. Like, as I'm a high school debate guy,
Yeah.
they
So
got
too many people. So this is what I tend to see and hear far too often. A lot of people are listening to respond and not listening to comprehend and try to be educated or become well informed on the subject matter that's being discussed at that time. And people become too defensive because they heard a word or heard something that made them think or feel a certain type of way that they don't like because that part of their um, intellect has not been challenged by anybody else, or is a discussion that has not happened often either in their house, in their community, in their friend group, and it hasn't been explored, further and further. And sort of what tends to happen is those individuals come with preconceived notions, and they don't want to get outside of their own perception and sit in somebody else's perspective.
Yeah.
most people they on the internet, they just say shit because they want to get clicks and views, and they say shit to, like, if you if you look at the back and forth between men and women, it's like everybody's just saying stuff because they want to cook, or they want to have that moment. And there's once you are in that space, there's not really much positive discourse that can happen, or that's going to come from whatever conversation you're having, because the goal isn't to find a way ahead. It's not to connect or find common ground. It's just to say something funnier than the person that you're talking to.
Hmm. So real dope. You're out of New York, right?
No, Philly.
Philly. All right. So you're still in the tri-state area. So, in your personal lived experience, what is it that you find is the biggest misconception for most people who don't live either in Philly, New York, or the tri-state area about sort of cultural cohesion, right? What's the biggest misunderstanding that you tend to hear?
Um People who not like from this like the area honestly when I am on the internet it's just like thinking that we so different. Like our communities blend together so well from at least from when I grew up like we just was all one, so like that's kind of like the biggest thing is like I guess people who not from places like that have no idea. But like to me, like I always viewed them niggas as black. Like they had waves, they was brushing their hair like I was brushing my hair. Like we was macking on the same chicks. So yeah, they always, they was always black to me.
So essentially we are more alike than we are different. That
Yeah,
that that
yeah. Where I come
that's the
from now, of
concept.
course, now we always viewed Mexicans as their culture a little bit differently than ours, typically. But like the Puerto Ricans and like um, what else? Like and anybody we thought was Puerto Rican, like we just you know, and we assumed everybody Puerto Rican is Spanish. that's not Mexican. Like we just always assumed it was Spanish. I mean, it was Puerto Rican. But yeah, the community's always been kind of like this when I grew up.
What about you, Willie?
Restate the question one more time for me, please.
What's the biggest misunderstanding or misconception about, um, the two cultures where you live geographically? Like, how, like, for example, I know Real Dope just talked about he's out of Philly. And, people in the tri-state, Philly, New York, Jersey area, there's a greater cohesion because we're more alike than we are different. And sort of what is it like where you are located?
I'm in Maryland, so where I say DC basically, and there's not really a large contingent of Mexicans compared to where I'm from in Dallas. I'd say that here it's 10 times less than it is in Dallas. So, but there's not a big, contingent. Maryland is a blue state. DC is, whatever is in the White House. And I don't see a lot of issues with these people, with you're saying blacks and Mexicans going, back and forth. And I would say it's probably more of a white, the Trump supporter regime, and then Mexicans, which unfortunately is weird because 45% of Mexicans voted for Trump, or 55. Like, so, I see that here more than anything else. The biggest issue we have up here is, all the anti-Trump sentiment and, just the anti-government stuff that, these woke folks are trying to push and promulgate.
But would it be also a fair statement that you find that, a lot of the, I don't want to say agenda, but like kind of political themes that are being pushed kind of makes people gravitate or align with different political views or side that, this is where, because prior to, I think if Kamala would have got in, I don't think we would be having this type of conversation.
If Kamala had got in, we wouldn't be having any type of conversation because we probably would have been invaded by now.
I can't imagine. Like I'd have been off the internet. I couldn't stand the internet if Kamala was in the joint. Right now.
Yeah, all these passports I got from different countries, I'd have moved.
Mm. You know what's so interesting? There was a conversation before that we had here on Lapeef, and it was talking about, should people consider a second passport or a second home and stuff like that. And we had a really good debate, and a lot of people said no because they were afraid to live somewhere else outside the U.S. for fear of either safety or not integrating into the culture. And sort of like, that's interesting that you made that comment, Willie, because I also share that same sentiment because I also have to myself. Do you think that people are traveling a lot more and kind of familiarizing themselves with other culture outside of just being in the U.S. and being sort of propagated?
I think a lot of people are traveling. I think traveling is probably, from the last time I looked, traveling is, people travel almost 1,000% more than they did 20 years ago now. And I think that's great. But what I don't appreciate and what I think is a huge issue with the way the world views America is the way that we conduct ourselves in these people's countries. I would say that I don't want to say the majority, but I would say close to the majority of people who travel to other countries go to those countries just to, cannibalize and be parasitic to the country they're in. They just want to go, eat the food, take up space, see people, be on beaches. And then if you look at some of the couth and decorum that specifically my community lacks on a frequent basis, that's why you see things like the young lady from Dubai who's getting arrested because she went over there and was, talking crazy and putting her hands on people and shit. Like, or you see people who go to, like in London, you see like Americans going over there being loud, American, braggadocious, and then getting stabbed and cut because they don't know how to conduct themselves. I've been to 81, 82 countries, and I've never been in any of those countries and not seen one American showing his ass. Like it's normal for us. We try to go to another country and then make that country bend to our will or bend to us being American, and like they're supposed to kiss our ass. And that also shows me that people just don't understand history a lot. They don't understand American history and some of the views and sentiment that we have earned throughout the course of our country's history. You need to be aware of that when you're trying to go out places. Like a lot of women and even men, now thanks to Groupon, are like going to places like Jamaica, Brazil, all that shit, like at a frequent rate. But then not understanding like that when you get over there, like that shit's not safe. Like Brazil is not a safe country for Americans, especially a safe country for Americans that are going to go over there and act and show their ass. Like you'll get fucked up over there. Or Jamaica, it's not a safe place. It's not an inherently safe place for Americans. It's just close in proximity. You go over there and you can really get fucked up. And you see it so often. Like most people, when they travel, they don't even look at the threat condition for the country they're going to. Most people don't even know what that means. But they'll go somewhere, all willy-nilly and be like, yeah, like, oh man, I can't wait to go to China. Go to China and then you get caught with a vape pen that they're not supposed to have, and now your ass is in jail. Or everybody's going to Thailand and trying, or Bali or the Maldives. Like in Bali or the Maldives, if you're gay over there, that's punishable by death or life imprisonment, one of the two. So, people going over to Bali doing all this wild shit, like I know if I go to Bali, I'm definitely going to have my fun. But say you went to Abu Dhabi and was trying, just get it in, you can't have sex with someone you're not married to over there. So, it's the odds of you being prosecuted for that are significantly higher than you think. People going to Saudi Arabia and, talking
What
about
about the Maldives?
It's the same. I believe it's the same or similar. It's one of those two.
Let me look
But
it up.
people going to Saudi Arabia and getting locked up because, in Saudi Arabia, you can't even say anything bad about the country on the internet. So if you went to your Facebook in Saudi Arabia and was like, fuck Saudi, that they can detain you. And what they'll do is they'll wait until you get to the airport. You'll be trying to leave. And, you got to scan your passport to get out. They'll be like, hey, my friend, hold on. And then next thing you know, you either got to pay a fine or, try to finesse your way and get up out of it. So I think that the more that Americans travel to these countries and behave poorly, it's only going to get worse for us.
So there's a cultural appreciation in terms of the food, the beautiful scenery and all that stuff, but there's a lack of awareness and a lack of education in terms of how that country operates and functions and the things that you have to abide by while you're there visiting.
Yeah, like just look at the bathing suits the girls try to wear when they go to Dubai. Anytime I've been to Dubai on the beach, right? Like, hanging out when I used to live or when I even lived there, it was always like every weekend, right? The weekend over there is Friday and Saturday. Sunday through Thursday is a work week. You go to the beach, you're out at, Al Jumeirah or wherever, and you see like it's always an American come out there, and then you see the police that are on the beach having to tell them to cover up. Like it never fails. And they give you a warning. They're not gonna like just come arrest you because you got your titties out. But you know how like these influencers are. They go over there, they want to take pictures and stuff, or they'll try to go get out on a boat and think they're safe, and they can come over there and hem you up. And then a lot of women are like, well, I went over there and did it, and I got away with it. Cool, you got lucky, but that's not saying you're the exception. You're not the rule. And it's just simple shit like that. Like people just aren't respectful of other cultures because in America they're not respectful of other cultures. And then you just you can be as disrespectful towards Mexicans as you want to. In America, you may not nothing happen to you, but take that shit to Cancun, take it to Cabo or Cozumel, anywhere else that you're going. So, well, I don't know, everybody going to Tulum, but that's a Groupon city, so I don't care. But like, if you can't go down there and act like that, because you get away with it here because you're in America, so you're like, all right, your home, your rules. But when you go over these people's homes, you got to follow by the rules, and a lot of us don't.
So there's a lot of poor home training and lack of etiquette. Real dope.
Yeah.
Your thoughts?
Ask your original question.
Just like how people, when people leave here, right? There's a love appreciation for the food culture and many things, but there's a lack of awareness and education on how to move and conduct yourself while you're out of the country. Why you think that is?
Because people not educated in general. They're not smart. Um, and they're not cultured. They don't have perspective. I think it's almost common sense. Like I've never been to China, but if I'm going to China, it's common sense that they're going to have different ideas of what respect and disrespect looks like. Like just subtle things like that. If I can watch a video on Instagram and and I'll see people like somebody in China get bumped by somebody in China, and the person didn't say excuse me or something like that, and they'll be like, "Oh, that's so rude," and I'll be like, "You have you even thought about their culture over there? Like, have you even thought about that? Maybe it's rude to bump somebody over here, and it's not rude over there. Maybe the answer to that is because their population is so big. Just like just things being, just having perspective outside of yourself to understand like that we come from different cultures, some high context, some low context. Um, like even when people come here, um, I don't like when they don't acquiesce to our culture. I hate it, you know. But we so lenient with it. It's like, but I hate when foreigners don't acquiesce to our culture.
Why you think that is? Why is it that we're so lenient when people come here, but when we travel abroad, we're held to a certain standard, or better yet, we're held to their standard and rules and policies?
Maybe they're a little bit more prideful about their country and their customs, and maybe though, even though we have our own country and our own custom, maybe we're just not as prideful about that. Um, like I know, you know, I don't like
What?
when people like and you know who do this a lot. Who Chinese people try to skip the line a lot. I'm gonna just be honest. And then when you say something, they try and act like they don't know what you're talking about. They try and act like they don't know English. I'm just being honest. That's an example of like, you try of like just not kind of respecting our certain customs, or um, it's just like even like the way we stand in line, like and things like that. We have our own customs and things here, and people don't respect that. I don't know why, but yeah.
So why are we less prideful today? Like, when did we lose our pride? Because a lot of people are very prideful of their custom, culture, nationality, their flag. Why are we? You kind of said it, like we're not as prideful. Why is that? And when did we lose that?
Maybe we don't think maybe we don't think we have the right to, because we come from such a country with such a melting pot. Maybe we think we don't have the right to do that. We think everybody. I know like one of our things here is like personal space. Um, in America, we have this thing called personal space where if like that it's like it's weird if you sitting on a bus and nobody's on it and somebody sits right next to you. It's like, why would you do that? Even though it's legal, of course you can come sit right next to me, but it's like, yo, sit a seat over. Don't sit directly next to me. Or if it's like a stall in the bathroom, don't come and use the stall directly next to me. Use the one next to the one next to me. Um, and I think that, yeah, I think that I don't know. I don't know, but I know I want people
Because
to
we're
follow
so
the rules.
diverse. I mean, we're so diverse, but yet we're so divided in some instances. Like, makes you kind of wonder, like, where the line begins and where it kind of ends.
You said we sold out. Say it again.
I said we're so diverse
Yeah.
in every facet, and and like I said, we're more alike than we are different. But there's a lot of division. So
Hmm.
where does that begin and where does it end?
Yeah. I think we are diverse, but I think that when you leave your house, that's when you kind of like follow the rules of just our society, like, and I know a lot of people hate when us as black people, and we hated ourselves when like we get loud and stuff like that, and it's like, yo, we're outside. Why like say that, if you want to start screaming, yelling, hooting and hollering, do that in your house, you know like stop twerking on people's cars. Like those are things that like once you go outside, I think that you do sometimes leave a little bit of your culture inside, and I think that's reasonable depending on what it is. And I think that's kind of like part of the purpose of like kind of like the corporate structure and how like everything is uniform and they like everything to kind of like be uniform because it's like, yo, leave. I know leave some of that inside, and when you come here, we kind of all become meshed the same and have our own its own culture and stuff like that.
So there's less friction that way.
Yeah, it's like a
Nobody,
little bit less
nobody
friction.
rocks the boat.
Yeah, we don't got 12 cultures in here. We just like we have one that we created, and that's the corporate culture. And then when you leave, go do what you do. But yeah. I don't know what y'all think.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Look, I think there's a sentiment to be had as far as like work, work culture, gym culture. You have all these different areas and different facets, but yeah, you have all these different areas and different facets and pockets of different cultures, right? But I think that you don't escape yours. I think you just experience more other cultures than just your own.
Yeah.
Somebody
Right.
said we are not a melting pot. Like, never mind.
He would just be talking.
Yeah, bro. I forgot. I got to stop looking at non super chats because never mind. Never mind.
There's so many cultures here.
But yeah, I don't. For me, I focus on my community and as I think I tie that to I tie that to my plight as a father. Like I got to protect my son from niggas. That's the goal. Like I have to protect him from the subsect of black people that are doing all the shit that has these new stereotypes and tropes being, supported and sustained because I don't want my sons to be that way. And I'm noticing like my older two sons are 18 and 15, and seeing where they are, you know, great. I've been able to protect them, but like my 8-year-old, him with us being up here, he's surrounded by significantly more niggas than he is black people, and that's something that I'm trying to actually do better about. That's why I coach his sports. I take him, I travel with him, and all of those things. But it's difficult for me to spend too much time concerning with the issues of other people that don't affect me. I don't have a citizenship issue. I don't have I was born here, so I'm a citizen. So I can sympathize for some immigrants, like for example, the kids who are losing their parents while they're at their high school graduation, while they're at the high school graduation because ICE came in and did a raid at that high school. Like I feel bad for those kids because those kids don't know if they'll ever see their parents again. The parents have to run, I'm saying dip, dodge, ducking, whatever to get away from ICE, but had to leave their kids at the graduation. After the graduation, there was 20, 25 kids that were just left there without their parents because it was a predominantly Hispanic school and ICE raid. So, those kids don't know what's going to happen. I feel so I can sympathize for them. However, at the end of the day, their parents are breaking the law. They're here illegally. They're consuming resources. They do contribute to the economy, but they're not paying taxes in large. And I can't sit here and say that I think that they should be given a pass. I think they should be given an opportunity. So to do it the right way, maybe even some sort of expedited process because they've already been set up here. They have infrastructure, they have family, and they have children. But at the end of the day, rules are rules. And if you don't play by the rules, then this is what happens.
Yeah. Um, and we benefit from them. Like I know, like my cleaners, I don't know their status, and I probably, you know,
Bro, I
they'll
had
probably,
two of mine get snatched. So,
yeah. So it's like I benefit,
yeah,
you know.
I had to get a whole new service now.
Yeah, and she be bringing her cousins sometimes or whatever. I don't know how that should work, but
You know what kills me, bro? And I said I wasn't gonna do it, but when people say like the immigration policy is not applied to everyone, it is. It's applied to everyone. There's just a certain group of people that gets more attention because they break their policy more than everybody else.
And it makes sense. We so
That part.
clearly attached to their country.
That part.
So like when I was saying that people talk about things and just not informed about what they're talking about, and they're only the subject matter expert of their opinion. That's the perfect example. Like the people aren't being targeted by immigration policy.
Yeah.
The groups of people who are subject to it or have it enforcing them more are terrorists and illegal immigrants or people who come from countries that are of a high dense terroristic population or anti-American support. So that's why he's placed bans. People coming over from certain countries. Have no issue with that. I have no issue with if there's a group of people who break the law more than others. I have no problem with them being focused on or paid more attention to. Like in a lot of black neighborhoods where crime is high, I don't have any issue with them increasing policing there. Like that's what policing is for. I don't have an issue with it. Where I have an issue with it is when it's just the policing is increased, and then the interaction with the population is also increased, and the criteria to interact with them is lower. So, like instead of saying like I had no problem with putting more police in black neighborhoods, but then don't lower the standards from which you can go fuck with somebody though. Like you can be there as your presence. That's what you're supposed to do, right? That's cool.
Yeah.
But just now you're saying, okay, well, since we're here and we're policing, we got to find something to do. Anytime you catch somebody going 5 over, give them a ticket. I don't agree with that.
Yeah, I think that's weird. But I listen, like I think like 2.5 years ago I was living in the hood still. Like, technically it was a gentrified area, but it was still the hood. A gentrified area is still the hood for black people because niggas still kill you. They ain't gonna touch the white people. But like I felt the safest whenever like after somebody would get like somebody get shot or something like that, right? The cops will come and sit on the block for a week. And it would just park 24/7 and it would sit on, and that's the safest anybody in the community will ever feel is when a cop is right outside because of all the nut stuff that's going on. So like to me in theory, especially like with all the young boys being kind of shot out, to me in theory, like I don't like I can give you a story, for example, right? Or somebody I know, he took his parent gun and he went to sell the gun, and who he went to sell the gun to pistol whipped him and took the gun, right? Now, now, of course, him and his mom can go to the police and say, "Hey, my son stole my gun to sell it, and somebody took his gun with their gun, and now it's a little boy that's 14 walking around with 2 guns right now." And in my mind, a cop should be able to stop him. Like, yo, I'm running your pockets. I'm running your pockets. I'm running your book bag. He told me you the one who did it. I don't care. Like, I think I think they should be able to do that. But like you said, I don't want them pulling people, like all the corny stuff, pulling people over for going 5 over. Just you pull somebody over for something stupid. Why your flashlight in the back? What are you looking for? Give them their ticket and keep moving. Stuff like that. But I do think like when in certain instances, like they should be able to like run in that little boy book bag, see what he got.
If it's now this is the thing though, what do they say? That's a slippery slope because you run in that little boy's backpack and one, it's not the boy that you're looking for, but then you go in his bag and you find that he got, an ounce, he got a couple blunts in his bag. You got to let that go. I mean, 'cause that's not what you were looking for. So that's where I can see that being problematic because I'm fairly certain that if I get pulled over, every time I get pulled over, I don't know if it's because it's attached to my license plate, whatever, but they always ask me if there are weapons in the car as soon as they get there. Mm-hmm. Before they say driver's license registration, it's do you have any weapons in the vehicle? The answer is always yes. Mm-hmm. So, and then I suggest for them, like, hey, for your safety and mine, can I step out of the car? That way, the gun's in the car, no problem. And I've never had a police officer tell me no. I've never had a police officer not be thankful that I was forthcoming about it. And I think that a lot of times when we get pulled over or we have these police interactions, we escalate. There's too many times where you can see, so especially this younger generation, arguing and fighting and hitting and shit to police officers and then getting mad when they go to jail. Like, I don't understand that. I don't understand how we can. I don't understand how like some of these people can just do those types of things and think that that's not, you're not going to, you act this way, you're not going to get the commensurate reaction.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's due to, I think it's due to intelligence and then emotional intelligence too. Like people think that like, and I always whenever I see people kind of like acting, hooting and hollering, acting in an erratic, type of like, I'm like, what do you think that made? Do you generally think that made your situation better? Like, do you think that just made this? Like, do you think the more you tell a officer like you argue with him, you think the more you argue with him, like the higher your chances are of not being inconvenienced today? It just don't make any sense. All of my ever since I've been like kind of like not on no dumb young boy stuff. All my police interactions are like so smooth. You know, pull me over. Hey, just so you know, I got a weapon in the car. You know, they give them your CCL, give them your gun. They give it right back to you in 2 minutes. You on your way.
Yeah,
Like,
I've had some. I've had issues with police officers that were assholes. It's usually the sheriffs though. They're like that. City police, they're not assholes. They're just either undertrained or scared. So
yeah,
you just have to, be nice to them, and you'll be fine. But I've had issues with sheriffs where, they come in, they like, so where are you going? And I'm like, I don't want to discuss my day. And I assert my understanding of my rights, during the stop. But even then, when they're being assholes, I just remind them like, hey man, listen, you're on body cam, and I'm pretty sure you're proud of the uniform you wear. Don't ruin your career by just because you're in your feelings now. Like, I have very pointed conversations with police because I know what my rights are. And then too, I'm also not worried about going to jail. I'm not a criminal, don't have warrants. Listen now. Go sit down. I don't have warrants. I don't have, anything to worry about. So, and even with, and when I see people when I'm with people, like say if we was in a car, I'm probably going to be a little more, understanding because the fact that you're in the car. Because now I don't want them having to ask you, like, where your stuff is.
yeah,
Because then, then you might have a warrant. I don't know. So I don't think that I would want to put you in that situation, but I think that anytime that people argue with the police officers, you see the clips, like the girl who was in the bank that was getting arrested for bank fraud and she was trying to fight and shit, or the girl who was at the gas station and like, why you need my driver's license for? But you have to identify yourself. Like, what are you talking about? You've been stopped. But either way, like you see those videos, and every time I see them, I'm just like, those lock their ass up. I don't feel bad for them.
yeah,
Like there's a right way to do it, and these people just don't respect authority. A lot of times, like even when we're talking about traveling, like we don't respect the authority of other countries. Like it's kind of like we feel like we should be able to go to somebody else's house and put our feet on the table when we travel abroad. Like well, sometimes I say the worst thing they ever gave niggas was the internet. The second worst thing is your passports, because now they go outside and want to do all this rat shit to make us look bad. I hate it.
yeah,
Well, they ought to have a, before you travel class, like, the same way you have to fill out the immigration paperwork when you travel to any of these countries to let them know that this is where you're going, this is where you're staying, this is where you're staying at, etc. You have to kind of go through like, hey, these are the things that you shouldn't do, things you should avoid, etc., etc. I think it allows people to be a little bit more informed, even when they're not doing their own research on their own, just to kind of give people the benefit of the doubt that they'll act right.
Yeah, I feel I'm concerned. Like when I've taken somebody out somewhere, like in a foreign country, I'm concerned about their body types because no matter what they dress, their body types will have them look a certain way. Like it's just part of the game. But in America, we understand that. Bahrain, they don't want to hear that. You got to cover up. You better put a badaya on, or something loose and flowy, a tracksuit or whatnot, something like that, because they take that stuff serious over there. Like it's a Muslim country, and again, I can't count on it, hands and toes, how many times I've seen people being checked for it and then shit going left because it's a hey, what are you doing? No, is she sleep? All right, I'm sorry. So go ahead. I can't count on both hands or toes how many times I've seen women being like, subject to dealing with stuff like that. And then, with me being an American guy that lives there and then seeing it, I don't even feel comfortable going and saying and correcting them or being like, hey, listen, y'all can't do that here. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know they're tourists, you know what I'm saying? But at the same time, I'll go over there and say something and now we into it. And no, I don't. It's not safe to fight with hyenas in Muslim countries. You got to do that shit in America.
Yeah. Yeah, I try not to like get nothing in another country. Especially you don't speak the language of the people inside the jail. Like it's hard enough being in an American jail trying to get something from the guards and all that type of stuff. Like get your phone call. Imagine you don't even speak the language.
When I was in the military and I went somewhere I wasn't supposed to go while I was on leave because I know you had to do a bunch of shit to get like you had to. It was a problem. But anyway, I went and then I went and met some of my buddies that were there, but they're supposed to be there. Well, we ended up getting into a fight with some off-duty police officers, and I don't know what it's like being deported as a Mexican, but I know what it's like being deported as an American from a country that you're not supposed to be in. Yeah. And that entire process, man, is terrifying because you don't know what's going to happen. Like I'm thinking, damn, my military career is over. They finna take me to the embassy, and then the embassy gonna call my command, the commanders, whatever. And I got a little bit of trouble, but it wasn't a career killer. But seeing that happen in mass here, it's a I wouldn't wish that on anybody. I wouldn't wish a foreign jail unless you like in Thailand or like an Asian country because they jails is fire. Like you go to jail in Japan, you probably living better than most Americans do that are in poverty.
Oh, wow.
Like you know what I'm saying? Because they have it's structure over there. But getting stuck in a Russian jail, or one of them saying, or even in like a European jail, French jails are real bad. Like I'd hate to see an American get stuck over there for some bullshit.
Yeah.
Get caught up in the wrong situation. Yeah. Like I mean, some people don't know how good they have it when they're here compared to some places around the world. Like it's like night and day. But yeah, what's something that from your culture that you wish more people knew or appreciated?
I don't. There's nothing for me. I don't want them to understand or appreciate anything about us. I just want us to treat us fair and leave us the fuck alone. Aside from that, I don't think we need to be appreciated for anything. I think we should. I don't want to be appreciated. I'd rather be compensated. So I don't think that there's anything that I'll care for any group of people to appreciate about me or mine, and just make sure that it's an even playing field. And if there's something the value that we add, I think that we should be compensated for. But appreciation doesn't do shit for me.
Okay, so more compensation over appreciation.
Well, I mean, compensation. Yeah, like it's a bunch of things I could think of. Or appreciation, representation, communication, all the shuns. But appreciation doesn't do shit really. You know what I'm saying? And appreciation is fickle. Compensate me for the value that I bring. And that can be done in many ways. Not got to be money. Opportunities. It's a lot of shit you can do. I just don't care about the idea or what other people think of me or my people because I just don't want us being judged based off the. I don't want black people being judged off actions of niggas. And that's all. That's if anything, I guess that's what I would ask. But as far as appreciating us, I don't care about that.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts, real dope?
I agree. I don't care for nothing. I don't care. Honestly, a lot of girls feel that way, and like soft dudes feel that way. I don't care about symbolism. I don't care about all that other extra stuff. I'm an efficiency guy. So like, I just want things to be efficient. I want to be compensated. All that other type of. I don't care how people feel. So yeah. Yeah, you see, I see Darnell in the comments, like he talking about like, and it's an insecurity coming out, like but their parents made it clear they didn't rock with us. Like you insecure, you sound like one of these girls.
I,
Like,
I'm probably the furthest thing from a Trump supporter, but what I will say is that I understand policies and procedures, and then also the worldview. And I don't think that there's a person on the internet that can make a logically sound and factually true point as to how Kamala Harris would have been a successful or better president than what we have. Like just from the fact that she's a woman alone, the world's not going to respect her.
and that's why people honestly, that's why people don't a lot of like it, that just reinforced like the entire idea of like, you know what, we shouldn't be listening to women. Be like you literally wanted us to vote for her because she was a woman and because she was black. Like, are you crazy? Have you lost your mind? Like, we shouldn't be listening.
Okay,
We should no, they shouldn't be leading us. Oh, I'll be back, y'all. I got to take my kids' day lunch.
shit, all right.
Yeah, I was gonna ask one last question, but I know the real dope is about to step away. I'll probably ask it to you. You know, I
So,
think in closing, you know, how can we socially compensate each other? Because I know you brought that up about being compensated. So, like, how can we socially compensate each other, right? Understanding that our plights are similar, understanding, you know, cultures are similar, and understanding that um, everybody is trying to, you know, fight essentially for their slice of a better tomorrow for that American dream.
um, I don't know. I think at first we'd have to agree that our plights are the same, and I can't say that they are. I don't because again, you know, if you look at it from going the furthest back, right? This group of people was brought here against their will. Another group of people is trying to get in here illegally, you know, 400 or 500 years later. So I don't think that our plights are the same. I think that there are some areas where we overlap. You know, again, like as far as representation, you know, as you said, appreciation. I think there's things that can happen there for both groups, but I don't think that our plights overall are the same. That's I would say it's probably a more fair comparison than when like some groups of people try to compare the plights of, you know, get the trans community to being black. I would say that comparing Mexican to black is significantly more um aligned because it is two different, you know, groups of people and not a group person's belief system or a choice that they're making to do, you know, to the whole cosplaying as a woman shit. But I would say that we need to find common ground in our plights and discuss those things while not while you know not casting to the wayside the differences, the things that are not the same. You know what I'm saying? Because like we can say that we have issues, right? Earnings. We know we're both towards the bottom compared to everyone else, both of our groups, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we can have conversations about that. But you know, an immigration thing we can't have a conversation about because we're not subject to that. We're not That's not something that's affecting us. We could talk about, you know, maybe over policing in our neighborhoods. That's something that we probably both see. We can talk about, you know, our schools not receiving as much funding as the next group's person, like, you know, next set of schools. So we can find areas where like the common ground we have, but we just need to be respectful and remember the grounds that we don't have that are in common, and then stay away from those because we can't offer you guys solutions for things that we're not dealing with. All thing we can offer to you is empathy and support.
Mm. All right, that's actually a good closing point right there. You know, something to kind of take away. There are certain things that we can't be involved or participate in, but rather give empathy and support. You know, understanding of their plight, what they're going through at that moment, and offer and extend, you know, sympathy and support in that light, right? Because there isn't a one size fits solution for everything,
Mm-mm.
and I think that's probably one of the strongest takeaways. Um, and I also kind of wish we had that same strong takeaway this past weekend, and hopefully we could kind of build up on that, continue to build on that moving forward.
I agree.
yeah, we're gonna put a pencil on it right here. I don't know if JR is gonna slide through for a moment, but yeah, I think this was I wanted to kind of have like an hour conversation, not make this a long typical panel where we typically have a similar group or a larger size, but rather just more roundtable kind of discussion, right? And I thought that this was very helpful, and hopefully this is the beginning of many other discussions moving down the road.